Continuing on with the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, and according to my marker, we're on page 204. And somebody asked in the online forums, why did I call the gospel class Mining the Real? So if that person is watching recorded versions, here is your answer. Mining the Real is just digging through the world's scriptures of all different kinds. And so those classes that have two names, like Thursday mornings is Advaita Vedanta dash I am that. So the Advaita Vedanta is going to be a topic that's going to be permanent, and we're going to study different texts in that time slot that look at that. And for Mining the Real, it's just doing that, just looking through various scriptures or various texts and just mining out what we can know about the divine reality, or this reality, the nature of the reality that we live in. So that's why it's called Mining the Real. And initially that was just the class name. And then I decided all of this stuff. All right, so we've been talking about the master, and he's been singing a couple of songs here and teaching us how to take delight in the name of God and repeating the name. And now he's going to just talk to us about it. He says, then the master said, even for your holy name, I have no taste. A typhoid patient has very little chance of recovery if he loses all taste for food. But his life need not be despaired of if he enjoys food even a little. That is why one should cultivate a taste for God's name. So it's interesting that that God's name is a cultivation, enjoying that. It's like coffee. You have to cultivate that taste, but once you've got that taste cultivated, it's very difficult to do without it. And so we got two more people coming in here. And so he says, cultivate that love for the name of God, really through discernment. If you just pay attention to the beautiful things that happen in the mind and the body when the name of God is chanted earnestly inside, that produces that love, that attraction. Any name will do. All right, here you have it directly from Thakur. Any name in the mantra will do. He says, cultivate a taste for God's name. Any name will do. Durga, Krishna, or Shiva. Then, if through the chanting of the name, one's attachment to God grows day by day, and joy fills the soul, one has nothing to fear. The delirium will certainly disappear. The grace of God will certainly descend. So there's some beautiful promises there. That, if you don't have a mantra, you can use the name of your highest ideal, whatever that might be. My goodness, more people. Priya's having trouble getting in. All right. So you've got it here that through the chanting of the name, one's attachment to God grows day by day. So that's how you do that. That's how you become attached to something positive, something that's going to be helpful in getting you out of delusion. So chanting the name of God, one's attachment to God grows day by day and fills the soul with joy. One has nothing to fear. Delirium will certainly disappear. The grace of God will certainly descend. My goodness. Now, I've got two Priyas trying to join. So there's some beautiful things right there for you. That there's no need for any fear, So if you have any fear or trepidation about approaching the divine, do away with it. It's done. Throw it away. Chant the name of God, and your soul will be filled with joy. So this is also a promise, and grace will most certainly descend. As is a man's feeling of love, so is his gain. So that's how you know how spiritual you are. How deeply do you feel love inside? How often are you provoked to love during the day? You know, oops, Shri has gone to God as mother. Boy, we've got an active crowd tonight doing odd things. So somebody's going to have to find their way over from mother's class to this one. So, but as is a person's feeling of love, so is their gain. So in your practice, that is how you know when things are going well, when you're beginning to feel more loving, when you're beginning to feel more compassion, when you notice that your character is changing little by little. So as is a man's feeling of love, so is his gain. Once two friends were going along the street when they saw some people listening to the reading of the Bhagavata. Come, Fred, said one to the other, let us hear this sacred book. So saying, he went in and sat down. The second man peeped in and went away. He entered a house of ill fame, but very soon he felt disgusted with the place. Shame on me, he said to himself. My friend has been listening to the sacred word of Hari, and see where I am. But the friend who had been listening to the Bhagavata also became disgusted. What a fool I am, he said. I've been listening to this fellow's blah blah, and my friend is having a grand time. In the course of time, they both died. The messenger of death came for the soul of the one who had listened to the Bhagavata and dragged it off to hell. The messenger of God came for the soul of the one who had been to the house of prostitution and led it up to heaven. All right, we got a little twist in the plot there. So that's why God is really concerned with your innards. He's not concerned with your externals. You may seem like a wonderful person on the outside, but inside, is that niceness true? Does it go? Does it, if you were to I guess you can't really do that. I was going to say, if you're going to dissect it, does that love permeate past the skin of our body? This is that whole problem with hypocrisy. Of course, all of us at this level are hypocrites at one level or another, but we should be steadily moving out of that by letting the name of God move into ourselves, move into who we are, and to begin to change who we are. That practice of seeing the beloved in everybody's eyes ultimately will start getting you to treat everybody lovingly. Seeing God everywhere on the bus or in the traffic will eventually, quell the anger, the road rage. So as we watch ourselves grow, that's the evidence that the name of God is accumulating that love within and making that change for us. And so it's also about being true to what you want. This is a tough one. It's really a difficult one to suss out, because you have these two young men. One of them went to the Bhagavata class, and you would think you would get some credit for it. The other one went to the house of ill repute, and you would think that he would get some karma for that. But because he went there and thought of God the whole time and was kicking himself around the block for having made the wrong decision, that was the truth of his character. The other man who went to the Bhagavata class and lamented not going to the house of ill repute, that betrayed his heart. And it's better to follow your karma. This is where we could get in trouble with this. Follow your karma so that it can be corrected. If you think that there's something in the house of ill repute, you might have to go until you realize there's not. But if you've gotten the idea that there's not anything there, and you go to your Bhagavata class and still have some thoughts about the house of ill repute, that's not what he's talking about. As we grow and learn little by little, we add our renunciation into the factor. And if we've got a practice going, you can renounce the house of ill repute and continue on your way. It doesn't mean that if you go to the study and don't want to be at the study that you shouldn't have gone, that you should go do whatever else you were thinking about. That's not necessarily the truth. That is the truth if it's the beginning and you have no practice behind you. But if you've got practice behind you, chant the name of God and do what's right. That's That's what I would say. But check your innards. Don't let the mind long for things that are unhelpful. Oh God, it's a terrible habit of the mind to remember only the small good things that come out of wrong action, and then to replay those again and again and nag you and nag you and nag you. Don't fall victim to that. Let your renunciation be strong in the face of that. Because if you can get your whole self on board with your renunciation, that nagging stops. That constant scratch will stop. Verily, the Lord looks into a man's heart and does not judge him by what he does or where he lives. Krishna accepts a devotee's inner feeling of love. In the Kartabhaja sect, the teacher, while giving initiation, says to the disciple, "Now everything depends on your mind." According to this sect, he who has the right mind finds the right way and also achieves the right end. It is through the power of his mind that Hanuman leapt over the sea. I am the servant of Rama. I have repeated the holy name of Rama. Is there anything impossible for me? That was Hanuman's faith. Ignorance lasts as long as one has ego. There can be no liberation so long as the ego remains. O God, you are the doer, not I. That is knowledge. That's knowledge. That's also surrender. Knowing God is the doer. But you have to perceive that. You have to learn to see it that way before you take advantage. That you don't take license from this idea, that if God's the doer, I'm not responsible. And suddenly you turn into some terrible toddler in the world running around wreaking havoc because I'm not responsible. God's the doer. That's not the way these things work. We never use grace and love for license. Grace and love are meant for inspiration, to do the right thing, to rise up and to go beyond these things. Ignorance lasts as long as one has ego. There can be no liberation so long as the ego remains. O God, you are the doer, not I. That is knowledge. By being lowly, one can rise high. The chatak bird makes its nest on low ground, but it soars very high in the sky. Cultivation is not possible on high land. In lowland, water accumulates and makes cultivation possible. One must take the trouble to seek the company of holy persons. In his own home, a man hears only worldly talk. A disease of worldliness has become chronic with him. The caged parrot, sitting on its perch, repeats, Rama, Rama. But let it fly to the forest, and it will squawk in its usual way. Yeah. So he's really driving home this point of authenticity, of being true to your practice and being true to your ideal, being true to your faith, and to not take license, to not give power to the avidya in ourselves that might lead us away from doing the good. And when we do surrender and do our practice, don't do it begrudgingly. Clean the house when you sit down if you need to. Sit there and go through your thoughts and go through the condition of your mind and place it again in its honesty before the mother. And she will bring around that change. She will bring around that inspiration inside. Every scripture makes that promise over and over and over again. Mere possession of money doesn't make a nobleman. One sign of the mansion of a nobleman is that all the rooms are lighted. The poor cannot afford much oil and consequently cannot have so many lights. This shrine of the body should not be left dark. One should illumine it with this lamp of wisdom. He sings a song, lighting the lamp of knowledge in the chamber of your heart. Behold the face of the mother, Brahman's embodiment. Indeed, so this is how you come to know that you're not the doer. By lighting that lamp within the heart, the lamp of knowledge that you're not the doer. By going to the heart, the silent shrine, and sitting in quiet presence, What happens there when the light finally illumines the heart is you see Mother. You see that it is Mother that has become even you, that it's Mother who has become all things. And in that knowledge is your wisdom. In that knowledge is your freedom. Everyone can attain knowledge, all right? No arguments. Everyone can do this. There are two entities, Jivatma and the individual soul, and the Paramatma, the supreme soul. Through prayer, all individual souls can be united to the supreme soul. Look at that. Through prayer. We don't often think of prayer as a path, but he says right here, through prayer, all individual souls can be united to the supreme soul. Every house has a connection for gas, and gas can be obtained from the main storage tank of the gas company. Apply to the company, and it will arrange for your supply of gas. Then your house will be lighted. It's a nice way of thinking it. You have all the connections you need. You have all the ports that are necessary. You're not lacking in anything. It's just establish the Mother in the heart and work your mantra with faithfulness and continuity, not giving up. And you will light your house. The lamp of wisdom will illuminate your inner world. And you won't be so confused. You'll be able to see the truth when you look at something. You'll be able to suss out the reality quite quickly once you've gotten the nonsensical thinking out of the way in the mind and pushed it into silence or surrendered it into silence. In some people, spiritual consciousness has already been awakened, but they have special marks. They do not enjoy hearing or talking about anything but God. They are like the Chatak, which prays for rainwater, even rainwater, though the seven oceans, the Ganges, the Jamuna, and the rivers near it are all filled with water. It won't drink anything but rainwater, even though its throat is burning with thirst. The master wanted to hear a few songs. Ramlal and a Brahmin official of the temple garden sang, "Dwell, O Lord, O lover of bhakti, in the Vrindavan of my heart. All my devotion unto you will be your Radha, dearly loved." So that's Thakur's practice of being the maiden, the handmaid of God. That you have Vrindavan in your heart, and that you dance with the divine in the heart, and that your devotion is the lover of God, right? And so that builds that intimacy. And again he sings, "The dark cloud of the summer storm fades into nothingness. When flute in hand and a smile on his lips, lighting the world with his loveliness, Krishna, the Dark One, appears. His dazzling yellow robe outgleams even the lightning's glare. A wreath of wildflowers interwoven gently swings from his youthful breast and softly kisses his feet. See, there he stands, the Lord of life, the moon of Nanda's line, outshining all the moons in heaven, and with the splendor of his rays, flooding the Jamuna's bank. He stands there, stealing the maidens' hearts. He lures them from hearth and home. Krishna enters my own heart's shrine, and with his flute note steals away my wisdom, my life, and my soul. To whom shall Ganga Narayana pour out his tale of woe? Ah, friend, you might have understood had you but gone to Jamuna's bank to fill your water jar. It's a beautiful image of God just there. When the dark cloud of the summer storm fades into nothingness, when the flute in hand and smile on his lips, lighting the world with his loveliness, Krishna, the Dark One, appears. You see, I like that idea of lighting the world with your loveliness. that you have to recognize that presence of God within you. And by sitting with it, by unifying yourself with it, you become that. And so it even becomes you lighting the world with your loveliness as Krishna, as your Krishna nature begins to become apparent, begins to shine through the layers that have covered it over with dust over the years. It's interesting here that he's called a moon, outshining all the moons in heaven. Is that because all things get their light from the one without a second? Even the avatar is just a hole through which God can be seen. That all of the splendor in the universe, all of the good things, all of the joys, all of the beauty come only from the divine, come from God. Everything. I doubt that there's a necessity to say that it's only the beauty. It's also the pain and the ugly, even though they don't come as pain, they're perceived as pain. From the divine, it's all love. It's all positive. It's just that we have to take the perspective of a soul, not the perspective of a body or mind, in order to see the perfection of the world, in order to experience the perfection of the world. They sing again. High in the heaven of mother's feet, my mind was soaring like a kite, when came the blast of sin's rough wind that drove it swiftly to the earth. And that's the whole reason for the warnings about the sin. It's a word we don't like, but it's a good word. It means those unhelpful things in the world. Nothing is right or wrong in and of itself in the world. It's always the content of the heart that makes the action good or bad. And so living here in this world where heaven is mother's feet, so she's reaching infinitely even beyond heaven, and that the mind soars like a kite when comes the blast of sin's rough wind. And I have found this to be very true over the years of practice, is that your vices will close the windows of your mind. Your vices will shut down the radiance in the heart. Your vices, your ego will block the bliss that is natural to your heart, that's natural to what you are. And so this being present in the moment and taking each moment in its course and manifesting what you are without the calculations of mind, without the calculations of ego, that's the way to love. That's the way to perfection. Not to follow the stories and the ideas and the paths laid out by mind and calculation, but by staying still in the heart, because there's no path to go anywhere. We have no need to move from here to there. We only have the need to train our eyes to see things as they are and to not be fooled. The master to the devotees: as the tiger devours other animals, so does the tiger of zeal for the Lord eat up lust, anger, and other passions. Once this zeal grows in the heart, lust and other passions disappear. The gopis of Vrindavan had that state of mind because of their zeal for Krishna. Again, this zeal for God is compared to collyrium. Radha said to her friends, "I see Krishna everywhere." They replied, "Friend, you have painted your eyes with the collyrium of love. That is why you see Krishna everywhere." They say that when your eyes are painted with collyrium made from the ashes of a frog's head, you see snakes. You see snakes everywhere. Don't do it. They indeed are bound souls who consistently dwell with woman in gold and do not think of God even for a moment. How can you expect noble deeds of them? They are like mangoes pecked by a crow, which may not be offered to the deity in the temple, and which even men hesitate to eat. Bound souls, worldly people, they're like silkworms. The worms can cut through their cocoons if they want, but having woven the cocoon themselves, they are too much attached to them to leave them, and so they die there. This is a wonderful insight, because a lot of our identities about ourselves are wrong, but we've invested so much in them. We've invested so much in them that it's very, very, very difficult to let go of these identities because we've suffered for them. And ironically, it's the identity that made us suffer, but it's the suffering that we pay for the identity with, that increases our attachment to it. It's a very odd arrangement, but Thakur is really giving us a good insight here. That when things need to change, let them change. If something isn't true about you, let it go. That's part of living in the moment. You see, it's the past, which is the ego, that keeps us clinging to old ways of thinking and old ways of doing things, the things that are familiar to us. And sometimes that familiarity is enough for us to exchange truth for that familiarity, where we give up a right notion just because we don't know what to do with when I guess when our layers are taken off, when we start to see ourselves differently than what we are accustomed to. It's hard to accept that, and we'll sometimes battle it. So don't hold on to things because they're your tradition or your way of doing it, or I'll do it my way kind of thinking. Be willing to let go when it's time to let go. Be willing to have a new you in every moment. Actually, ultimately, we're not going to have any sense of I. Ultimately, all of us are going to be free. And free means having no particular, because there's no limitation in that freedom. And in that freedom, desire disappears, because there is no space for desire. There's only infinity, a freedom of being, of isness, that's perfect in and of itself, regardless of condition or circumstance. So these silkworms, these silk cocoons that we create for ourselves, that give us a false sense of security, that make us feel like we know the world. This is something I was trying to talk a little bit about in the vlog I did just an hour ago, is this notion that these ideas about the way the world is, and our identities mixed in with our notion of how the world is part of that silk cocoon that we wrap ourselves in. And this liking groups of people and not liking other groups of people, those all serve the ego in the same way. They give it its sense of vitality, its sense of control, its sense of rightness, and hatred towards those who might represent in your mind something negative or something unhelpful, become the enemy instead of the behavior itself. Instead of knowing that God is everywhere present, we begin to see other things besides God being present. And so when you see that, if you see that you've wrapped yourself in familiar things, and you're starting to look out over the edge of that little wall that you've created for yourself at the world, and feel safe because of what you think or what you know, then know you've got a cocoon going, and it's time to dismantle it, because there's no room for a small sense of self. Their love is too big for that. Wisdom is too wide for that. Free souls are not under the control of lust and greed. There are some silkworms that cut through the cocoon they have made with such great care, but they are few and far between. It is Maya that deludes. Only a few become spiritually awakened and are not deluded by the spell of Maya. They do not come under the control of lust and greed. There are two classes of perfect souls. One, those who attain perfection through spiritual practice, and those who attain it through the grace of God. Some farmers irrigate their fields with great labor. Only then can they grow crops, But there are some who do not have to irrigate at all. Their fields are flooded by rain. They don't have to go to the trouble of drawing water. One must practice spiritual discipline laboriously in order to avoid the clutches of Maya. Those who attain liberation through the grace of God do not have to labor, but they are few indeed. Yeah, grace, oddly enough, seems like the easy path. But having faith in grace is difficult indeed. You know, to the faith is deep. Faith is unconditioned love. And it's not something that our mind knows or can understand. And so this trusting in grace is a very deep practice and takes a lot, requires you to spend quite a bit of time with the beloved to grow in that faith, to have enough of an experience of that love to know that it can hold everything. And if it's holding it, you don't need to. You know, and God demands that. He's like, you have to surrender it, then grace will cover it. But that surrendering is quite a task. And so he says there's two paths. There's this depending on grace, you know, which is the quickest path, no doubt. It can get us there in an instant. But are you humble enough? Are you free of ego enough to let go of the ego, to give up the ego? You know, even though you have invested so much in its education and so much in its health and its good looks and its warmth and its dynamite personality and those things, do you love being you too much to surrender, that you might just simply be, not be someone or something, but simply be? Then there is the class of the ever perfect. They are born in each life with their spiritual consciousness already awakened. Think of a spring whose outlet is obstructed. While looking after various things in the garden, the plumber accidentally clears it and the water gushes out. Yet people are amazed to see the first manifestation of an ever perfect soul's zeal for God. They say, where was all this devotion and renunciation and love? The conversation turned to the spiritual zeal of devotees, as illustrated in the earnestness of the gopis of Vrindavan. Ramlal sings this song. You are my all in all, O Lord, the life of my life, the essence of essence. In the three worlds, I have none else but you to call my own. You are my peace. You are my joy. You are my hope. You, my support, my wealth and my glory. You, my wisdom and my strength. You are my home. You are my place of rest. You are my dearest friend, my next of kin, my present and my future. You, my heaven and my salvation. You are my scriptures. You are my commandments. You are my ever gracious teacher. You, the spring of my boundless bliss. You are the way and the goal. You, the adorable one, O Lord. You are the mother, tender-hearted. You are the chastising father. You, the creator, the protector. You, the helmsman who does the steering of my craft across the sea of life. Master to the devotees. Ah, what a beautiful song. You are my all in all. Ramlal sang again, this time describing the pangs of the gopis on being separated from their beloved Krishna. Hold not the wheels of the chariot. It is the wheels that make it, is it the wheels that make it move? The mover of its wheels is Krishna, by those by whose will the worlds are moved. Yes, that's interesting. I mean, of course, reading that there in my mind, I just got this image of us trying to sabotage our own spiritual progress. Us trying to hold back, slow it down. I'm not ready for that. I don't want to do that. So we hold the wheels of the chariot. Krishna is changing. Krishna's power to lift us higher. Don't be an obstacle to your own spiritual growth. The master went into deep samadhi. His body was motionless. He sat with folded hands, like he does in his photograph. Tears of joy flowed from the corners of his eyes. After a long time, his mind came down to the ordinary plane of consciousness. He mumbled something, of which only a word now and then could be heard by the devotees in the room. He was saying, "Thou art I, and I am you. You eat, I eat. What is this confusion that has been created?" Continuing, the master said, "I see everything like a man with jaundiced eyes. I see you alone everywhere. O Krishna, friend of the lowly. O eternal consort of my soul. O Govinda." He uttered the words eternal consort of my soul and Govinda. The master again went into samadhi. There was complete silence in the room. The eager and unsatiated eyes of the devotees were fixed on the master, a God-man of infinite moods. Adhar Sen arrived with several of his friends. He was a deputy magistrate, about 30 years old. This was his second visit to the master. He was accompanied by his friend Saradacharan, who was extremely unhappy because of the death of his eldest son. A retired deputy inspector of schools, Saradacharan devoted himself to meditation and prayer. Adar had brought his friend to the master for consolation in his afflicted state of mind. Coming down from samadhi, the master found the eyes of the devotees fixed on him. He muttered to himself, still in an abstracted mood. Then, addressing the devotees, Sri Ramakrishna said, "The spiritual wisdom of worldly people is seen only on rare occasions. It is like the flame of a candle. No, it's rather like a single ray of sun passing through a chink in the wall. Worldly people chant the name of God, but there is no zeal behind it. It is like children swearing by God, having learned the word from the quarrels of their aunts. Worldly people have no grit. If they succeed in undertaking, it is all right. But if they don't succeed, it scarcely bothers them at all. When they need water, they begin to dig a well. But as soon as they strike a stone, they give up digging there and begin in another place. Perhaps they come to a bed of sand. Finding nothing but sand, they give that place up too. How can they succeed in getting water unless they continue to dig persistently where they started? Man reaps the harvest of his own past actions. Hence you read in the song, "O mother, I have no one else to blame. Alas, I sink in the well these very hands have dug." I and mine, that is ignorance. By discriminating, you will realize that what you call I is really nothing but Atman. Reason it out. Are you the body or the flesh or something else? At the end, you will know that you are none of these. You are free from attributes. Then you will realize that you have never been the doer of any action, that you have been free from virtue and faults alike, and that you are beyond righteousness and unrighteousness. From ignorance, a man says, "This is gold and that is brass." But a man of knowledge says, "It is all gold." Reasoning stops when one sees God. But there are instances of people who have realized God and who still continue to reason. Again, there are people who, even after having seen God, chant his name with devotion and sing his glories. How long does a child cry? so long as it is not sucking at its mother's breast. As soon as it is nursed, it stops crying. Then the child feels only joy. Joyously it drinks from the milk from its mother's breast. But it is also true that while drinking, the child sometimes plays and laughs. It is God alone who has become everything. But in man, he manifests himself the most. God is directly present in the man who has a pure heart of a child, and who laughs and cries and dances and sings in divine ecstasy. There is so much in those 2 pages. Everything, it seems to me, could be brought out of those 2 pages. And that song, that beautiful, beautiful, beautiful song, I want to read it again. Just meditate, just put your ideal in your mind, put the divine in your mind, and just say these things to him as we read this. You are my all in all, O Lord, the life of my life, the essence of essence. In the 3 worlds, I have none else but you to call my own. You are my peace. You are my joy. You are my hope. You, my support, my wealth, my glory. You, my wisdom and my strength. You are my home, my place of rest, my dearest friend, my next of kin, my present and my future. You, my heaven, my salvation. You are my scripture, my commandments. You are my ever gracious Guru. You, the spring of my boundless bliss. You are the way. You are the goal. You are the adorable one, O Lord. You are the mother tender-hearted. You are the chastising father. You, the creator, the protector. You, the helmsman who does steer my craft across the sea of life. Just as you read that, you can just feel the things straightening up inside. You know, you can just, you get a glimpse of what real surrender is. To have nothing of your own, nothing that you've built, nothing that you need to maintain, nothing that you need to work on or create bigger and better. But that God has become all of that for you. This is the person who comes to their realization through grace. Someone who can say these things about their beloved and mean them through and through. This is that road of grace. It's a long road. I think we all get on it eventually. I don't think any of us gets there by doing great practice. I think we do enough great practice to realize we can't. And then we get lost in love. We get lost in grace. And grace brings us the rest of the way home. But stay with it. Don't grow tired. You know those fish that get caught in the net, and instead of continuing to struggle and continuing to try to get out, they just bury their heads in the mud, though they're still on the wrong side of the net. That's giving up. That's when you just decide, I can't do any of this. I just can't do this. I'm just gonna do what I do and just be what I've been, and just bury my head in the sand here. And you believe the defeat. The ego has won. You believe your defeat. You're not able to take the hope of the Lord. the promise of God that you will overcome, that you will come home, and you begin to believing that for some reason you're different, you're not good enough, or whatever the story might be. So don't ever give up. Keep pushing, keep going forward, keep trying over and over and over again. Never define yourself with your lower self. Never define yourself by your faults. Always define yourself by those three truths, right? The only three things we can say about ourselves. What are those three things? I'm love, I'm loving, I'm intelligent, and I exist. Those are the only three truths that we can say about ourselves. Anything else that we attach to an I is wrong. It's part of the lower self. It's part of a delusion. So if you want to say, I'm angry, no. The mind is angry. You are free of anger. Oh, but I'm jealous. No. The mind is jealous. You are free of jealousy. I'm tired. No. The body is tired. You are ever free, ever blissful. Oh, but I'm depressed. No. You're looking through a depressed mind. You are ever free, ever loved of God. Beautiful. You see, so we just keep remembering the truth of the situation, even if we're not experiencing it yet. We learn to make these assumptions, and slowly, slowly, the mind gets ironed out, gets combed by the comb of the name, the comb of the mantra, and it all gets straightened out, and you can see clearly. By this time, Sri Ramakrishna had become better acquainted with Adar, who related the cause of his friend's grief. The master sang as if to himself, to arms, O man! Death storms your house in battle array. Bearing the quiver of knowledge, mount the chariot of devotion. Bend the bow of your tongue with the bowstring of love, and aim at him the shaft of Mother Kali's holy name. Here is a ruse for the fray. You need no chariot or charioteer. Fight your foe from Ganga's bank, and he is easily slain. This is amazing right here. This is one of my favorite stories about Thakur, in how he deals with death. That he doesn't come with, sentimental, placating phrases of like, oh, your son's in heaven with God. Oh, we are all one, oh, we're all one without a second. Death is just the removal of a pillowcase. He doesn't go into all those teachings here. He's talking to Adar directly. He says, to arms, fight, stand up, get up. Death is storming your house in battle array. This is going to be the biggest challenge to your faith that there is, because you believe yourself to be body-mind. And this death is going to dismantle you. It's going to just tear your heart out and give you a sadness that you can't recover from, right? So he says, stand up, O man, bearing the quiver of knowledge, knowing what is true. Stand up and fight. Mount the chariot of your devotion. Get that devotion, stoke the fires, sit in prayer, sit with the divine. Bend the bow of your tongue with love. Get that love, not grief driving the mouth and the thoughts. Put love back in the driver's seat of your mind, of your expression. And aim at him the shaft of Mother Kali's holy name. Get that mantra going. Get that mantra going to protect your pristine mind from the lies that you're dealing with. Here is a ruse for the fray. You need no chariot or charioteer. Fight your foe from Ganga's bank, and he is easily slain. Right? So there, you don't need anything outside of yourself. There is nothing outside of yourself for you to take refuge in, for you to take comfort in. for you to reach for your safety and your security. Don't. You are the temple, and within you is the divine, your only refuge, your only power, your only weapon, your only strength against ignorance. Fight your foe from Ganga's bank, from the bank of purity, from the bank of freedom, from the edge of that river, and he is easily slain. He's not as big as he seems. Death is not as big as he seems, right? So I really love this idea of dealing with death confrontationally, with power, with strength. It's like, no, I will not back down from this. I am ever free. Take this body. I will stand here and watch with a smile on my face as it disintegrates and falls from my experience. I won't back down. I will stand up, and I'll take my knowledge, and I'll take my mantra, and I'll take my devotion, and I'll take Mother's name, and I will fight. I will not be defeated. This is the call to everything, not just death, but anything that involves this world. This is the way to deal with it. Stand up. Be what you are. Love with a mightiness, with a purpose and a strength and integrity, with a hard-earned purity of effort. Stand up and be well. Right?